So we're talking today about the Hackitt report on building regulation and fire safety. And Mary, obviously the catalyst in a way for this was the Grenfell tragedy from last year. But actually this report looks to step back a bit and look at some of the regulatory issues. So what are the regulatory issues that this report set out to examine?
Well, keeping people safe from fire seems like such an obvious thing. But what the Hackitt report identifies is that in the UK, still so many people are ignorant of what those legal requirements are. The law and the guidance is very difficult to find and very complicated and confusing. And to be honest, there's not a huge amount of regulation in this area currently. And as a result, what we see this report doing is actually refocusing on the regulatory issues.
And there's been a lot of focus in the interim and since the publication about specific things, the cladding, for example. But really, the report is talking about systemic change. What sort of the systemic changes are recommended in the report?
Well, in the life cycle of a building, you have it divides it into two key stages. You have the design and build stage, and then you have the occupation stage. In the design and build stage, there is a real focus in this report on setting out who the responsible parties actually should be. There's discussion about whether each building should have what's called a safety case, which is something that those in the airline industry, for instance, are very familiar with, a real holistic look and collation of all sorts of documents, materials and experts to demonstrate that that building is in fact safe. And what this also talks about is there being key gateways, essentially key opportunities when there must be demonstration from what they call the duty holders as to this building being safe, and that might be the planning stage and ultimately at the sign-off stage. In occupation, there's discussion about the fact that ultimately it's likely to be the building owner or the landlord who's going to be responsible, but also discussion that there should be somebody called a building safety manager who was probably going to be the managing agent who needs to have the skills to, on a day-to-day basis, manage fire safety within the building. And finally, there's also a real focus on residents' voice, unsurprising following all the discussion about Grenfell and residents' concern, and the need for there to be a residents' engagement strategy, which is perhaps what a lot of our clients will already do, but this is talking about it having it much more clear.
So the report identifies a lot of systemic change that is likely to be coming down the horizon, and I suspect parts of that will be quicker than others in actually materialising. What should businesses be doing now, whether they are in the development sector or whether they are occupiers or owners? What the practical steps that they should be thinking about taking now?
We've been talking to clients about this for some time now to say there are certain practical steps that just don't need to wait. They are sensible and they're within the confines of the existing law. One of the steps is about consultation when you are thinking of when you're designing a building. You don't need to consult with the fire service before your plan is submitted to the planning authority. But practically speaking, if there is then an issue identified later, it could cost our clients a lot of money. So we recommend that either you consult with the fire service or bring on board those fire specialists right at the outset of design. Secondly, this discussion about a safety case. I suspect that a number of our clients would already have a lot of that relevant material, but perhaps not all together, perhaps not in a single digital file, which is being recommended. And so a move towards that would be really positive. In terms of resident engagement, again, it is something that is very sensible and is probably being done, but actually having a strategy and being able to demonstrate that will set our clients in good stead. And finally, this point on defined roles and responsibilities. There is clearly the opportunity in contractual documentation to do that, particularly on the newer refurbs or builds, and therefore that's something we'd encourage our clients to look at.
Mary Lawrence, that's been really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.